The sublime is thought of as this feeling of being overwhelmed by nature, overwhelmed by an experience, overwhelmed by a work of art. For Amy, so much of what she thinks about is the beauty and the range and the vastness of the American people. Amy Sherald thinks of herself as an American realist, as a person who works in the tradition and lineage of American realism, but her significant contribution and difference is her commitment to depicting Black Americans. She is very interested in capturing a sense of interiority, the strength of their gaze and the strength of their self-regard, their belonging to themselves. And I think that is something that we see across all of Amy's paintings in the exhibition. And so hopefully in walking through the exhibition and seeing the paintings as well as your fellow visitors, you might have that feeling of being kind of overwhelmed positively by the vastness, the breadth, the range of the American people.